where software quality lives, breathes, and keeps evolving.
Welcome to the Quality Beat, the podcast where we take the pulse of quality in real-world software delivery. Today on the Quality Beat, we're talking BFSI testing, that is banking, financial services and insurance, where a bug isn't just a bug, it's a payment outage, a regulatory incident, or tomorrow's headline. And for that, I'm joined by two experts who live and breathe this domain, and that is Sachin and Charu. I've been warned that these two know more about BFSI bugs than the bugs know about hiding. So I hope you're ready and welcome to the show, both.
Thanks for having us, Gurpreet. I was really very looking forward to joining the Quality Beat. I'm a regular listener of this podcast, and I like the way how your guest brings in the different perspective around the topics, and these topics we discuss every day. Today's topic about testing in BFSI is not an exception. It does demand a change in thought process once you are associated with a BFSI project as a quality engineer. And considering that, I do agree about the cascading effect that a bug can have in BFSI domain. A bug is not just a bug, it's a money at risk, trust on the line, and regulatory consequences all at once.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Gurpreet. Happy to be back on Quality Beat. And Sachin, I'm glad that you mentioned the cascading effect because in BFSI, bugs don't just cascade, they compound interest on chaos.
Totally agree. And before we jump in, then a quick warm up, right? So let's keep it quite short. Tell me, what part of BFSI are you closest to? Sachin, I'll let you take this first.
Sure. I'm primarily involved in BFSI digital and payment programs. That includes the technology upgrades, modernization of client-facing legacy application for different banks and different regions across the globe, and also into data migration for these banks.
Very nice. Okay. And same for you then, Charu.
Sure. Well, I've spent most of my time in core banking and asset management. And if there is one thing that I've learned, it's this that in e commerce, a bug will make you lose a sale. But in BFSI, a bug can make you lose your sleep, then
Mhm.
trust, and sometimes even your job. So, yes, the stakes are very real. And I'm excited to dig into what makes BFSI testing so uniquely challenging.
Right. Perfect. Let's get into it then. So, testing exists in every industry. So, tell me, Sachin, why does BFSI deserve its own testing conversation?
Very interesting question that you have asked. So, in BFSI, the systems run under the constant constraints. So, they do not just process the transactions, they continuously enforce limits, controls, cutoffs, and the rule across the flow. That changes the nature of testing. So,
Hmm.
you are not validating individual features, you are validating multiple systems, interact under the load, time pressure, critical transactions like settlement, reversals, and end-to-end processings. So I would say in BFSI, the problem rarely remains isolated. A small inconsistency can quickly cascade across ledgers, reports, and downstream systems. And as Charu also mentioned, it is compounding defects. So
Hmm.
that is why the BFSI need its own testing conversation. The testing here is not about does it work. It is about it behaves correctly under legal, financial, and ethical constraints.
Hmm.
So
It sounds indeed very complicated. I'm just wondering, can you give me a real or anonymized example of where this has actually happened?
definitely. So I do remember one of the case of 2012 when I was starting my career. So I do remember that case. It was Knights Capital. So that is classic example of BFSI failure, wherein a faulty deployment triggered unintended trades and
Mm.
wiping out nearly $440 million within a
Wow.
minute, and that effectively ending the firm.
Oh,
So
wow.
this was not
Okay.
just a performance issue; it was a control failure, and I would say the BFSI testing is closer to the aviation safety.
Mm-hmm.
You do not test whether the plane can fly. You test to ensure that it never flies when it should not. So,
Yes.
in addition to that, I would say it means the real goal of testing is not just to prove that the system can operate. It is
Mm-hmm.
also make sure that it cannot operate when conditions are unsafe. So when data is wrong. So in BFSI, we are majorly focusing on data, rules, and the regulations. So based on that, uh, preventing the wrong action is far more important than enabling the right one.
I see. So you're almost flipping the perspective then, and just going into that topic a bit more. When testing failed in BFSI, what does that failure really look like? Charu, I'll let you take this one.
Sure. So when we are talking about failure, well, what really breaks first is not the system, it's trust.
Mm-hmm.
And trust, once lost, becomes a multi year repair exercise. Here is
Yeah.
what is different about BFSI failures. So, our customers often know before we do. That is a challenge. In
Mm.
most industries, your monitoring dashboards light up first. But in BFSI, Twitter lights up first. Customers complain before our alerts fire. Your call center gets flooded before the incident ticket is even logged. Now
Mm-hmm.
imagine it's first of the month, salary day for lakhs of people. A bad job fails silently at 2 a.m. By 9 a.m., thousands of people are checking their accounts expecting their salary, but it's not there. They can't pay their EMIs, they can't pay school fees, they are calling the bank, posting on Twitter, panicking. But the technical team, they are still trying to figure out what went wrong, but the damage is already done. So in BFSI, customers trust doesn't wait for your root cause analysis. And to give you a real world example, TSP Bank back in 2018 attempted a migration.
Mm-hmm.
Customers could not access their accounts for weeks. Some customers saw other people's account details. Now imagine seeing a stranger's balance when you log in. This
Yeah.
issue actually escalated to parliament and the CEO had to resign. And the bank paid over 400 million euros in compensation. So that's the stakes in BFSI. And even we have a similar example in India as well. So you remember Yes Bank in 2020?
Yeah.
So people woke up one day and could not withdraw their own money. Their ATM stopped, UPI
Mm.
failed, business payments bounced. So vendors could not pay suppliers, employees could not receive salaries. Trust evaporated overnight. So in short, money can sometimes be recovered. Trust that take years. And in BFSI, trust is not just a customer sentiment. It's your license to operate. So that is actually what a failure look like in BFSI.
I completely agree with you there. Trust is huge, and like you said um, it takes very long to build trust and literally minutes to break it. And so BFSI organizations obviously spend heavily on testing, right? Because the stakes are high. Why do the same categories of failures then keep repeating, right? So you've mentioned TSB Bank, you've mentioned Yes Bank. Sachin, I'll let you take this one.
Sure, Gurpreet. So basically, when we are doing the testing in BFSI and most of the organizations, they are spending heavily on the testing, but they are optimizing the coverage, not the risk.
Mm-hmm.
So team tends to understand four things like how the data should behave at a scale, how timing and sequencing impact the transaction, how the people react under pressure, and how regulatory interception involves. So as Charu also mentioned, the people reacted overnight or the day, and the CEO has to resign.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the one thing that everyone has to think of, and over the they over trust some of the things like They done the testing on the happy paths, assume business rules as static, and believes UAT reflects production reality, but it is not. So the hard truth in BFSI is BFSI failure repeats, not due to lack of testing, but testing the wrong reality.
Hmm. And so going into that topic then, right? Most BFSI testing is done with carefully prepared test cases, and obviously that data would be somewhat limited. Um, what what does production data reveal that these test cases never do?
Okay, so I'll take that one.
Hmm.
So when you talk about test cases show you what you expected to happen. But production shows you what actually happens. And
Hmm.
those are really the same thing. So think of test data like a showroom car. Clean, new, everything perfect. Production data is like a 10-year-old car that's been through floods, accident, three different owners, and still somehow runs.
Yeah.
It has dents that we did not create in the first place. It has modifications we don't understand and parts that should not work together but somehow do.
Hmm.
So the scenario is very out of control and unimaginable. Now, if I relate it to a real story, let me tell you about an account that I personally encountered. So there was an account which was opened 15 years ago when KYC rules were different.
Right.
Customer did not use it for 7 years. So the account went dormant, obviously.
Hmm.
It got reactivated recently only with partial KYC update. Now,
Right.
this account also survived two core banking migrations, but each migration only moved some data correctly. It
Hmm.
had a fee waiver form from a scheme which was discontinued 8 years ago, and the interest calculation rules from three different RBI circulars applied at different times. Now, imagine what happened to that account when we deployed the new code. So, interest was calculated twice,
Hmm.
fees waived that should not have been because that scheme was discontinued 8 years ago. Statement generation failed completely. Now everything looked fine in our test environment because we never imagined this combination could exist. And a natural question arises like why no one designed such test cases?
Hmm.
Well, because you can't imagine what 15
Yeah.
years of regulatory changes, system migrations, and human decisions can create. These accounts are actually not designed, they evolve.
Yeah.
Right? It's like rehearsing the fire drill in an empty building versus handling a real fire drill with smoke, panicked people, blocked exits, and a fire extinguisher that expired in 2019. So,
Hmm.
same building, completely different experience. That's how it's different.
Yeah. So it's almost like it's very difficult to comprehend all of the different scenarios you might have.
Yes, because the combinations can be so many. There's one example that I've given you. If you
Yeah.
think of such combinations, you can't comprehend such scenarios.
Hmm. You haven't even planned for it, let's say. I mean, I'm just curious, is there one particular pattern that you always see in prod? So obviously you've mentioned there are uh, cases that you have which, you could never have even imagined, but is there
Mhm.
something that creeps up time and time again?
Yeah, I would say so. So I call it cascade of reasonableness. So
Hmm.
what happens is where every system does its job correctly, but the end result is completely wrong. So imagine just for an example. Now imagine you order food online, then immediately you cancel it. So you see cancelled on your application, but
Hmm.
the payment gateway already processed your payment and it's correct because the order was placed.
Right.
Restaurant already started cooking, that is also correct. They received the order. The delivery person is already dispatched. That is also correct because kitchen confirmed. And the cancellation also went through. That is also correct because application received your request, right? Every
Hmm.
system did exactly what it is supposed to do. But you got charged for food you'll never receive. The restaurant made food no one will ever eat. So that could actually this kind of scenarios would still survive in a non BFSI domain. But in BFSI, this is terrifying. Imagine a payment gets initiated, approved, debited, and settled, all correctly according to each system rules. But the customer has already cancelled. Five different system has processed a transaction that should never have existed. So in production, we discovered that correctness at each step does not guarantee correctness overall. And this is a pattern you only learn from production.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then obviously going into that a bit further then, right? So with test environments, everybody says they should be prod-like almost, right? In BFSI, what does that actually mean, and what do teams usually get wrong? Sachin, I'll let you take this.
Sure. So whenever we are doing some testing and we are having the testing on the UAT environment, everyone should prefer to do that testing on prod-like. But the
Mm-hmm.
people get confused, or many BFSI team assumes that prod-like simply means matching the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it has very little to do with the hardware or the environments. So prod-like means replicating pressure, transactional volumes, time constraint, concurrency, and uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
So team usually go in what they test. So they rely on the clean data instead of aged data, like inconsistency in the records. So they validate single happy paths
Mm-hmm.
instead of retries or the contentions. And they test during the normal hours rather than the around uh, cutoff windows.
Mm-hmm.
So I do remember one of the case what happened with one of my friend. So they were doing testing on the happy path, and they matched the infrastructure. Everything was good, but the data in the database, so that was very less. So they done the testing with the clean data and
Mm-hmm.
did the sign off, but when the customer tried to replicate that, the system breaks. So
Right.
that is how or where the difference between prod like or the actual production environment comes in. What truly matters is how the data behaves when time is limited. BFSI system rarely fails during the steady environments or the steady operations.
Yeah.
So they fail during the transactions. So when real-time processing and batch different transactions are going on, some debit, some credit, or some batch jobs at the background, and settlements are going through. So at that point, the prod like is not about like the production. It's about breaking the system the way the production eventually will.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how I would say the BFSI, the prod like makes the difference in BFSI.
Yeah. Okay, and why do BFSI defects then pass UAT and still explode in production? Um, Charu, if you could go into that.
Sure. Well, because UAT validates business acceptance. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
validate system survival under real world chaos. So UAT is like test driving a car on an empty road on a Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
However, production is driving that same car in Mumbai traffic during monsoon, rush hour with a crying baby in the back seat and your phone and your phone ringing at the same time.
Sounds
So
like a
same car,
nightmare.
yeah. So it's the same car, but it's a completely different test if you see. So
Okay.
eventually, like UAT asks, does this feature work as expected? But production asks, does this feature work when 50,000 customer hit it at the same time while
Mm-hmm.
bad jobs are running, while another system is having a bad day, and while someone accidentally triggers a retry storm, right?
Mm.
And there are like very real world examples as well we have seen. So let me tell you about one of the example. So we in UAT we tested single click for a pay button, right? Because that's how it's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
But a customer double clicked the pay button. Now what happened is after double clicking the button, two payment requests in same milliseconds went
Right.
through. Now both check balance, both see sufficient funds, and both proceed. Customer gets debited twice. Now, if you see rule wise, neither transaction was wrong. Both followed the rule, but together they created an impossible state and a very angry customer.
Hmm.
So BFSI systems somehow has a very creative ways of failing. You know, that's how
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
it's an interesting way of putting it. And then, what BFSI scenarios are then genuinely hard or almost impossible to test before production? Over to you, Sachin.
Sure. So some of the most BFSI failures, which only happens when real customer, real money, and real operational pressure comes together at a scale. So uncomfortable truth here is you simply cannot recreate those conditions safely in the test environment, no matter how advanced tools or how prod-like environment you claim to be, but still, some behaviors only emerge when there is a genuine financial risk or the real customer interaction involved. So take payment as an example. When transaction partially failed, customer do not wait, they retry it.
Hmm.
And that sudden surge retries can lead to duplicate debits, delayed
Yeah.
the reversal or the balance mismatches. You can retry logic or everything, but still at the same time you get into troubles.
Hmm.
Next, I would like to take an example of the regulatory changes. So every country have their own norms and clarification of those regulations. So still we cannot there are a lot of things which are read in between the lines. So regulatories so regulations most of the time they implemented after they got into some troubles. So the test environment assume stability production rarely matter that.
Hmm.
uh, After that, I would take another example of why mature BFSI organizations do not chase perfection. So they focus on control, containment, and the visibility using feature flags and killing the transaction switches. So whenever there is some wrong deployment go on, or there is some bug comes in into the production, so they switch off that particular feature within few seconds so that it is not impacting the other customers. So for that, they have also implemented some of the monitoring system. So there are a lot of things which are running background to monitor all these things, and they take the actions on the automatic basis whenever there is something happens in the background.
I see. So they try to do damage control where possible.
Right.
Um, okay, I've got an interesting question then, right? So, Charu, let's assume UA automation, API
Mhm.
testing, CI pipelines, and modern tools are all in place, right? So, your absolute dream. What still keeps you uncomfortable before a BFSI release?
Okay. I think green dashboards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, green dashboards are comforting, but I have learned that the most dangerous releases are the ones where everything looks perfect. You know,
False
it's like a
positives.
pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, which gives you a false hope.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a pilot who's more worried on a clear, calm day than during mild turbulence. You know why?
Why?
Because turbulence keeps you keeps everyone alert actually, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
perfect conditions makes people relaxed.
It means
And
the pilot might
relaxation,
take a nap,
yeah,
right?
yeah, or can be on autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But relaxation in BFSI is actually very expensive. And what and the scenario that keeps me uncomfortable are like one is mentioned by Sachin itself, like regulatory interpretation risk. Now I might think this is compliant, but this is worlds apart from the RBI or any regulatory figure thinks or agrees this is compliant or not, you know,
Mm.
or like the accounts that I've mentioned, accounts you have never seen, data combination we did not imagine could exist. So such things definitely keep us uncomfortable. Other thing is cascading effect. Like system A is fine, B is fine, but A plus B plus C plus Friday evening and month
Yeah.
end equals disaster.
Equals chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Okay. Yeah.
so that I think what keeps us, what we should ask before every release is what did we not think to test? And if we discover it in production on a salary day, can we survive it? That
Mm.
is the actual question. Yeah. And even though, like, I think the question that you asked, I agree, we do have tools like UI and API testing in place. But these are like cars' airbags, safety essentials.
Mm.
These are reassuring. But the real question is, how does this car behave during an actual accident on an
Yeah.
actual highway?
Hmm.
You know?
Sounds quite stressful.
Mhm.
Okay. Next interesting question then, right? This one will go to you, Sachin. So, um, obviously we hear a lot about automation and AI, and they are heavily promoted within the BFSI testing area. Where do you think they genuinely struggle uh, or fall short?
Definitely. So I started my career with automation only. So I
Hmm.
was a big fan and big promoter of automation and AI. But when I entered to BFSI, so put me at the wrong side. So automation and AI are very good at testing what we already know, but they
Hmm.
struggle with what has not happened yet. Okay. So in BFSI, the biggest failure does not usually come from the known flows. They come from the combination of data, timing, and human behavior. I can see we are more focusing on data and the timings in the BFSI. So yes, AI absolutely support the decision making, but the accountability is still the on the people, on the someone who is having the domain knowledge.
Hmm.
So there are a few areas where automation and AI struggle the most. The one is the context and the intent.
Yes.
AI can tell you what happened, but it struggles to judge whether it should have happened. A transaction may pass every stream of rules, but still violate business intent and the regulatory expectations. So this risk is usually spotted only by someone who is having deep domain expertise. So that's why we say domain experience is the main in the BFSI.
That's completely understandable. Yeah, it does
Yes,
sound quite
definitely.
deep-rooted and specific.
So, second, I would highlight the regulatories. So, in the last two, three questions, we are focusing on the regulatories. So, regulations are not just static rules. So, they are interpreted differently across the institutions, clarified after the implementation, and sometimes enforced retrospectively. So that is why I said read in between the lines if you wanted to go with
Hmm.
the regulation ambiguities. So AI works on the patterns, and those patterns we cannot judge those pattern in advance. So
Hmm.
that's why those judgment we cannot put into any of the AI models. So and there is another pointer that I believe in AI that is the most one, the data and the learning. So most of the defects or the failures in BFSI are high impact scenarios, but they
Hmm.
are rare and the low frequency. They have the very low frequency. Also, if that happened, the data is not available for AI learning.
I see.
So that is the another way how the AI and automation fails
Hmm.
to run the BFI testing or the BFSI scenarios. Uh, so as Charu was discussing, was giving the analogy about the cars. So I would like to say automation is like a navigation. It
Hmm.
works very well on the known roads, but when the condition changes in BFSI, we still need an experienced driver.
Absolutely. That's a very good way of putting it. Okay, and then I've got one for you, Charu, then. Can you share a payments or cards example where timing, partial failure,
Mhm.
or retries, for example, caused a serious risk? Have you had experience with that?
Yeah, definitely. So let me start with a statement. Like in BFSI, actually, partial success is most dangerous kind of success, because
Hmm.
everyone assumes it worked.
Yeah.
So it's very delusional. So let me give you a real example for that. Now, a customer had a monthly SIP for, let's say, 25,000 in mutual funds,
Mhm.
routine stuff. But here is what happened at month end. So, first of month, auto debit triggers and 25,000 leaves the savings account. But the connection to asset management company times out, because we are dependent on integrations as well.
Yeah.
Now, core banking marks transaction as completed because money has left. But asset management company never receives the instruction, so no mutual funds units allocated. Now it's the second of the month. Because there was a failure, so retry mechanism kicks in. Debits another 25,000. Asset management company now allocates the units, but for the second debit only. This whole thing results into customer spending like 50,000 gone from his account, but only 25,000 worth of mutual fund. And the funny part is they don't discover this until they check their portfolio 2 weeks later. Here, like I mentioned earlier, customer know before we do. And it's not necessary that they'll check their balances every day or accounts every day, right?
Mm.
So why is this worse than a simple failure? Because if the whole thing had failed, the customer would have known immediately. But partial success, like for there is no alert fired, no error logged for partial success. Two systems both believe they did their job perfectly fine, right?
Mhm.
The customer was the only one who knew something was wrong, and they found out weeks late. So that's the challenge here. In short, I can say that in BFSI, silence is terrifying. A loud failure that alerts everyone is often better than a quiet partial success that nobody notices until it's too late.
Mhm. Okay. And going more into that then, silence is terrifying, right? In
Mm.
BFSI, what does good enough testing actually mean? So who actually gets to decide that? Sachin, over to you.
Uh, so we always, whenever we are doing testing, we always say good enough.
Hmm.
So, but in BFSI, it does not mean that everything is tested. So it means the testing is fully understood, explicitly discussed with the stakeholders, and deliberately accepted. So because the consequences are financial, regulatory, and reputational, so decision can never sit on the QAs. So although the QAs have the domain knowledge, but still there are a lot of decisions that have to be considered with the product owners and the other team members. So it has to be a shared call between the business, risk, compliance, and the technology.
Hmm.
I would say the real problem starts when speed becomes the only priority, when
Yeah.
the releases are driven by the timelines, dashboard, or the optimism. The QA risk are documented but quietly ignored. So I would give you a real-time example where the QAs have raised some defects, but the product owner and the other seniors, no, these are not the real defects. They won't impact the production, but when the build go to the or the feature go to the production, it completely breaks. So
Mm.
that is why when something is raised, it should be considered, and some RCA or the risk mitigation contingency plan should be maintained around that. So in BFSI, it is not be good enough is not about the comfortability.
Hmm.
It is about the informed accountability, as everyone is accountable for the quality.
Absolutely. Okay. And if we had to cut 30% of the BFSI test coverage tomorrow, uh, what would you never cut and why? I think this is going to be a slightly difficult question, seeing as testing is so crucial. But yeah, Charu, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was about to say that this is a really good question, but at the same time, it's very difficult to answer because there is no right answer for this one.
Hmm.
But In my opinion, I'll definitely protect anything where money meets rules because that's where BFSI risk actually lives, not in the pretty screens.
Mm-hmm.
So, if let's say, think of a bank like a house, okay? The login screen, mobile app, dashboard, that's the paint, furniture, and decor of your house. It's nice to have and it's visible to everyone. But the ledger, reconciliation, authorization controls, that's the foundation. That is
Mm-hmm.
actually the plumbing, electrical wiring of your house. It's invisible, but if it fails, your house will collapse.
Yeah.
So, what I would never cut would be, like I said, ledger integrity. If debit doesn't equal credit, nothing else matters. Because the most important thing is BFS is obviously money, right? Reconciliation, because that's like the smoke detector. It tells you something is wrong before your customers do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then authorization limits. This is your circuit breaker. It stops big mistakes from becoming catastrophic.
Okay.
And lastly, the one that we have been reiterating many times, regulatory reporting. Because
Mm-hmm.
the app looked fine will not work as an excuse with RBI, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
Now,
great.
what can be cut is actually pixel perfect testing, cosmetic validation, nice to have features. If I'll have to cut, you know, if you
Yeah.
are desperate to cut 30%, this is the area where I'll cut.
Yeah, that goes more into I guess the
Yeah,
user friendly side of things, but you want to make sure that the core functionality still works as
correct.
expected.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, thanks for that. And then what's one lesson BFSI testing teaches you that no other domain does? Over to you, Sachin.
So the lesson that I have learned from my journey during the BFSI. So I would say the systems in BFSI, the systems rarely clash loudly. So this they succeed quietly, wrong numbers. Money moves, ledger balance temporarily added, the dashboard stay green. So Charu was also saying the same. The green dashboards, which are the most riskier thing. And by the time someone noticed, the damage has already compounded across customer days, reportings, cycles. So it has compounded a lot.
Yeah.
So BFSI teaches me to fear silent correctness
Hmm.
more than the visible failure because silence lets mistakes scale.
Okay. And same question for you then, Charu.
Sure. Actually, I'm going to reiterate what Sachin has said. I
Mm-hmm.
completely agree with him. And BFSI has taught me that the scariest bugs don't throw errors, right? As Sachin mentioned, they throw
Yeah.
wrong numbers that look perfectly right. So a calculation that's off by 0.001% does not crash, it does not alert. It just quietly compounds day after day, until someone reconciles and realizes that lakhs have been moved.
Mm.
So one thing that I would say is BFSI humbles you because it shows you that you cannot really uh, think of all the scenarios and test all the scenarios.
Yeah, definitely keeps things interesting by the sounds of it. Um, so if listeners were to remember one thing from this podcast, what should it be about testing in BFSI? Sachin, I'll let you go first.
Okay. So if listeners want to remember one thing, it should be in BFSI, testing is not about proving the system work. It is about preventing the system from doing the wrong things silently.
Hmm.
So if the things are like the 0.001%, or there is a movie, I do not recall it, a movie in the movie, Indian movie. So that was also recalling the same thing. Uh, Madhavan was the hero, and he tried to make things like banks try to one of the bank tried to fool the people by just putting the interest after one day. So there were lack of amounts, 100 crores of amounts coming into the accounts, but the interest are getting 1 day delayed. People do not bother 2 rupees or 1 rupee in their account, but that compounded it to a lot, and that was a scam. So I would say if you want to remember one thing, so that should be it's about protecting the system from doing the things wrong, not proving the system should work.
Mhm. Well said. And same for you then, Charu.
Yeah, sure. I think one thing that I would want listeners should remember definitely would be test like someone's salary depend on your systems working correctly because it
Mhm.
actually does, right?
Yeah.
Behind every transaction is a person paying rent, buying grocery, sending money to family. When you remember that, you stop testing features, you start protecting people, you know.
Hmm.
The human impact is very real in BFSI.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Definitely. I would like to add one more line. Do not like test it like a tester, test it like a owner.
Yeah.
I think that's great
That's
one.
a very good one. Yeah. Okay, great stuff. Hey, Sachin, Charu, thank you so much. It's been really insightful. Very reassuring for anyone in BFSI who sometimes feels like, why is this so difficult? It's clear that it's quite difficult and stressful, and that's why quality here matters so much. So thank you both for joining today.
Thank you,
Uh,
Gurpreet.
thank, Thank you so much, Gurpreet. Enjoyed this conversation. The BFSI quality is hard by design, but that is exactly where it deserves the focus. So that is the agenda of this conversation, that why BFSI need the focus.
Absolutely. And thank you both. To everyone listening, if you take one thing away today, let it be this. In BFSI, quality isn't a phase, it's a heartbeat, and testing is how we keep it stable under pressure. So, if you've enjoyed this episode on the Quality Beat and you'd like us to go deeper on topics like test data strategies, resilience testing, or if you have a concrete challenge, do let us know. Charu and Sachin will be happy to hop on a call with you, or you never know, we might turn it into the next episode. So until next time, keep the quality beat strong.